Hi, I'm Erica Monet, and welcome to Metamorphosis. If you haven't been here before, Metamorphosis is just a journey that I am going through to get to myself. It is about self-empowerment, self-love, and just living my life for me. I'm also looking to empower you to love you and for you to come along on this journey with me. So before we get into today's video, just make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment below so that I can know that you're here with me in the audience. I would love to hear your input on just my journey, any thing that you feel like you can contribute, anything that you have been experiencing that may be similar to what I'm talking about, just anything like that. So today, I just wanted to really talk about me and who I am, what I've been through, and what makes me, why I started this journey called Metamorphosis. And so I've touched on little things here and little things there throughout a few different videos, mainly because I find it challenging to genuinely talk about and feel comfortable with my story, where I've been, what I've been through. And I think all of it is a lot to unload at one time. So today I'm not going to get into a lot of super specific details, but I want to just kind of explain where I started from. So for me, I started the journey of Erica at a place of challenge. My home life, of course, could not necessarily have been considered the healthiest, especially when I was younger. It involved a lot of change. My parents divorced really young, when I was really young, really early. It involved a lot of moving around. In fact, I went to 4 different elementary schools, right? I changed states even, and most of my family to this day is actually located where I moved from. They're not here where I live now. And so I'm actually living here because, my mom remarried and my stepdad just Richmond worked, right? Because we weren't the only children, my brother and I, we weren't the only children. My dad also had a child. And yes, even though I kind of interchanged stepdad and dad very often, I have a relationship with both my biological dad as well as my stepdad. And so for me, they are both dad. And for some people, that's like, what, girl, what are you talking about? And I'll just say dad and they get confused. But it's just a part of my story and who I am. I got married at a very young age because I had my first child at a very young age. I was 20 years old when I had my first child. So not high school young, but still hadn't been out long young. And their dad was actually just starting his first semester of college at the time when we found out that I was expecting. And it was a big blow, just because we were not prepared. Although we did the things that people do to get there, we weren't prepared mentally for that responsibility, but here it was. And so we had our child together. We got married, and there was just there was a lot of things that both of us were carrying when we walked into that relationship. Neither one of us were healthy. And that makes a big difference. And when I say healthy, I don't mean physically, because we were both, by any standards, healthy people physically, but by mentally and emotionally, and even spiritually. Neither one of us were healthy. Neither one of us were doing well. And even the pretenses of entering into that relationship on my side of it were not genuine. For him, they were, I believe, but I believe there was also just a sense of duty that came along with our relationship. And so it just was not the healthiest relationship. It did start as a friendship, though. Like, we started out friends in school. That's kind of how we even met. We met in school. And it was a interesting journey for me. And one day I'll kind of talk more specifically about my relationship with him. But the key thing that I want to focus on today is the fact that going forward through that marriage, we were married for a really long time. I ended up separating from him, just letting him know that I didn't want to stay. It was just not healthy. I was not happy. And I didn't feel that he really was either. I still felt like even all those years later, it was just about the duty. Not that he didn't like me at all or anything like that. It wasn't that we just hated each other, but just us being in a relationship together was just not something that either one of us really needed to do, not for us to be our best selves. And so I left him, and then I entered into a relationship with my best friend. And my best friend is a woman, and I have been happier than I have ever been. Not only because I have found a relationship where I feel fulfilled, and that is not saying that there aren't days where we're getting on each other's nerves and things are going right all the time, because that's not what it means by any means. But I'm feeling a sense of who I am. I'm allowed to be all of me. Sometimes it's a little complicated and annoying, all of me, but just like I'm all of me, and sometimes it's a little annoying and complicated, same goes for her. She's allowed to be all of her. And sometimes it might be a little annoying, might be a little complicated, but we are both there, happy, willing to work together. To not to say you need to change that thing that's making complicated or annoying, but how can we grow in that thing so that it doesn't feel complicated or annoying or distracting even. Because sometimes some of our own emotional and mental stuff becomes distracting. And one of the things that I personally am dealing with, and I've left a lot out of my story, and just a little brief quick thing I could say about it. I was molested as a child, which is a very serious situation. I have been sexually assaulted many times in my younger years by different people. I have been physically harmed by people and mistreated. I was bullied. I practiced self-harm. I went through a period of self-cutting. I would do things like hit things in an attempt to cause myself pain. I still to this day sometimes have struggles with anxiety and depression, and I don't necessarily claim those things on my life, but I do know that they are real and they have to be faced. And a lot of what I dealt with when it comes to hurt, confusion, and frustration growing up, and not saying that any one person or any one situation caused those things, but they happened. And so you have to work through it. And living a life where you're constantly being told to just push that thing down, or, okay, if you do this with it, it'll go away. And that's not actually how real healing works. Real healing, you have to have faith that it will go away and that things will change, but it also requires work on your part and a willingness to be open about what's going on. And another thing I think I didn't mention in my story, and I may have mentioned before, I had a serious hospitalization where I kind of lost use of my body entirely, but primarily my right side. My left side was extremely weak. My right side was not working. And so it was a 30-day, basically, hospitalization, and then still home and months of physical therapy to get even remotely back close to who I was. And I'm still not 100% physically where I was, and I am nowhere near who I was at that time. And that's something I'm actually proud of, because it took so much work for me to recognize that I wasn't really that person that was hospitalized. I wasn't who I was at that time. I was just a version of myself, but I was locking myself away because it didn't match who others told me I needed to be. And I started living a life where after that situation, for me, I realized that moment made me realize that I was stuck. I was trapped and I couldn't breathe. But it wasn't because other people necessarily limited me, just because I made myself one of those. I'm a people pleaser. And so I got so stuck in fitting and molding myself into who I thought would be pleasing to everyone else, that I lost myself and I never really knew myself the way I should have because of it. And so from that time and just over time, I have grown so much. There is still so much more growth to happen. But I have grown. I am living my life as myself. And there's nothing more freeing than that, to live my life as myself. So please, please, please continue to stay on this journey with me. I will try to share and be transparent more often and where it's appropriate. I would love to really dig in to more of the things that I've been working on personally. But I would also love to hear what kind of things you're working on, because there may be something that you're doing that I would love to try, and there may be something that I'm doing that you would love to try. Please go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Erica Monet, and this is Metamorphosis.